Okay, I believe we are now live. Hello, good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are, all across the world. Welcome, welcome to yet another live stream. It's been a long time since the last one, and this one is really gonna be, I say this every time, it's really gonna be a short one. We're just gonna go over the Solarpunk art collaboration for this year. We tried something different. I think it was really effective. So I'm just really excited to get into everything. So first and foremost, I guess I want to explain what the Solarpunk art collaboration was and is meant to be. The Solarpunk art collaboration first started in 2021, I believe, and its purpose was just to generate, stories, to generate visuals, to build, to co-create the visuals of the future that we all seek. That one was very small, my channel was very small, but we got a good few submissions. And you know, as the years went on, we did another one in 2023 with the theme. That was the first year we had a theme that was bioregions. And then we had another one in 2024. And that theme was New Dreams of Labor. And this year we had a different theme, Life of Learning. Now, this year, I think, has been our most successful year yet in terms of number of submissions because I was able to collaborate. And it's funny that it's called the Solarpunk Art Collaboration, but before today, I was not, or before this year, I hadn't collaborated with anybody to work on it. And I collaborated with a very special person, a very gifted individual by the name of ALXT. That's what he goes by on the internet. And he worked with me. He had reached out to me from since last year to give me some feedback on how the last one had played out. And he worked with me to develop this one, almost like a creative director, to or yeah, a co-producer in developing this collaboration, in developing the guidelines and the themes, and in helping me to set up, things like how long the time from announcement to deadline should be and what can be done in the meantime to facilitate the conversation. He did a whole live stream with me, which some of you may have tuned into, which went into a lot of what it might mean to develop solarpunk art, the sort of questions we should be asking ourselves, the sort of threads that we could be pulling on to generate a conversation. So you can check out his work on alxd.org. He also had a podcast, and all of that is featured on the storyseedlibrary.com. Is it .com or .org? .org, sorry. The storyseedlibrary.org, where some of the art that is featured in this live stream and in the video will be featured on that website. That website is meant to bring together both the solarpunk art that is available under Creative Commons licensing and also the prompts. And not prompts in the ChatGPT or the AI large language model sense, but prompts in the sense of short podcast recordings, setting a scenario, asking some basic questions, and giving, writers the tools to tell a story. So with that in mind, and you can go back and check out that previous live stream. It's available publicly on the channel. You could check out the previous Solarpunk collaborations. The first one was hosted on this channel, and other ones were hosted on the Extra Androism channel, which I will link in the chat. With these in mind, we're going to get into this year's Solarpunk art collaboration with the theme, A Life of Learning, which is meant to go into all the different ways that we could be pursuing education, developing skills, and learning throughout our lives in a Solarpunk setting. So let's delve right in. There you have it. So I know that's a bit quick. It's meant to be a short presentation of the art, but that's what these live streams are for because we're gonna get into the individual pieces, you know, the descriptions that the artist submitted to accompany those pieces, and hopefully, stimulate your imagination so that you could come up with pieces of your own. If you didn't get to submit for this year, don't worry, it'll be taking place again next year. And just give me a sec. Right. Sorry about that. So for this year's, what was I saying? Yes, if you want to submit for next year, you absolutely can. The link to the Discord is on the Storyseed Library website. That's where a lot of the art, not all of them, not all the pieces are going to end up on the Storyseed Library website, but a lot of the pieces are going to end up there. And if you took inspiration from any of this, if you took inspiration from the live stream I did with ALXD a couple months ago, and you want to be part of future episodes, or you want to be future collaborations, or you just want to make your own art and send it in outside of the art collaboration, all that is possible. Check out links in the background. Sorry, in the background, in the description. So now I want to get into the. Oh yes, I agree. I wish there were more Solarpunk animations. Animations are a very intensive medium. I think we did get animation actually for the first Solarpunk art collaboration. Let me see if I can find it. There was very simple animation, but right. So this was a very simple sort of time lapse animation, quite beautiful, I must say. From day to night. I'd love to see more pieces like that. Hopefully, that's something people are going to be able to submit in the future. Um, Maybe even a future theme could be day to night or nightlife in a solar punk setting, something of that nature. I have a lot of theme ideas that I would love to go through. So let's go through each of the pieces individually and sort of talk about where they're coming from. The first piece that we have to discuss is a piece by E.A, sorry, E.L.A.Kidd on Instagram. And the title of this piece, not all the pieces have titles. Sometimes I had to assign a title, but this particular piece was titled Madam Yu leading Guang Changwu. Guang Changwu. And in the description, they say that Guang Changwu, also known as square dance, is a communal dance activity done predominantly by elderly people in urban China, especially elderly women. Dancers would gather at a square in formation and follow one or multiple leaders to a choreographed dance. In this illustration, there is a variety of people participating in Guanchangyu, including people of various ages and people with physical disability. Presumably, they are both long-time practitioners and newcomers in the crowd, so there's a sort of learning that crosses age gaps and abilities happening here. In addition, the background includes a community center with a large signage that reads cafeteria, fitness, library, barbershop. The building next to it has signages that say table tennis and tea. That's an interesting combination. In the foreground, the food truck is getting charged by a community battery. The mural to the left is a blessing said during the Year of the Lamb that roughly translates to pleasant sensation in the ear. I found the cultural incorporations on this piece to be particularly beautiful. It wasn't, you know, the sort of usual North American, European kind of almost quote unquote default that this person went with. They actively incorporated culture that is underrepresented in this part of the world and showcased and wove that element of that culture into a Solarpunk setting. And I just love to see that. That is, we're not ranking any of the art. They're each being presented in their own turn. But yeah, I really love this piece. The next piece that was submitted, and this isn't in the order that they were submitted in, by the way, but just sort of scattered randomly. The next piece is from an artist called Oh Shoot I Arted, o.shoot.i.arted, and it's a communal rock painting session. The description reads that sometimes learning happens spontaneously, like in this town where a group of people decided to paint some rocks and stones and add them to the other ones on the side of the road. They didn't quite bring enough brushes, but that's a very solvable problem with a makerspace right there. Now, this is more perhaps rural or more quaint than some of the other Solarpunk pieces that would feature cities or urban life. But I love to see that mix. I like to see situations where, people are able to, raise families and live their lives in a variety of settings. And in each setting, being so beautiful. And so seeing this group of very different people engaging in such a simple activity, it it kind of gives you a sense of, life being worth living. This next piece is called Research in the Community by Sketchy Jesse. In the description, they say that several individuals are out taking measurements of a local area, getting data to help develop maps and accessibility features for the community. Inspired by a thought I had that my community could benefit from a grade map, since the hills in the region can make biking difficult. And this is a very essential activity, the grading of land and the way that the undulations of the soil and undulations of the land can make navigation difficult for people, can make it difficult for people to traverse and make it difficult to know where you can build what. And to see the community actively engage in that process, it also helps them to think, I think, critically about how they engage in activity. Because when you're actively a part of that measurement process, you can now, go forward for the rest of your life and think, okay, well, this is how, water flows through this land. This is how the soil has been composed in this land. This is how over time, the sort of geological history of this area that I inhabit, and it gives you a sense of connection to it and gives you a sense of how you move about it spatially. So I really like this, practice of measuring the land that is depicted here. Our next work of art is, I just titled it Galaxy, by Art by a Day, ARTBYADDAE. And this piece tackles a subject, and this is in the description. This piece tackles the subject of African American oral storytelling and passing histories down from generation to generation. Jason, the elder, is telling his grandchildren about his night biking trips and that the stars were obscured by the copious amount of artificial light from the suburbs and the urban areas nearby. So clearly, Jason was raised in a world much like our own where light pollution blocks out much of the natural night sky. And so showing the succession of generations that these children look like they can't even imagine a time when the stars were so obscured and now they are able to soak it in. I think it's something that, if we are so fortunate as to reach this world that we strive for, it'll be one of those things that we look back on and mourn as a great tragedy that so many people went their entire lives without seeing the proper night sky, and that we will come to cherish and value the right to see all the stars that have over millions of years sent their light towards us. Next, we have Solarpunk Education by Crab with Knife. I actually had a conversation with Crab with Knife as this piece was coming into development because in the Discord, which you should join if you want to be part of the art collaborations, we had a brainstorming session over Discord call. And in the brainstorming session, people were able to bring in and discuss their works in progress, and this was among them. And so we were able to come up with certain ideas about how to develop this project, and that's how it ended up coming into the form that it is now. So we have here depicted, quote, a scene of a park ranger teaching a class about the local ecosystem at the ranger gazebo outside the city. He shows a diorama of the local lake along with live casting it to people from around the world who join via video call. So I appreciated the combination of inside and outside, the use of the model, and the model being right next to the real thing, and also the use of teleconferencing, ensuring that people from all over the world, or people who maybe are not able to reach a destination, can still get an education on this topic. Next up, we have Community Library by Sarah Pepin. Quote, I am a new elementary school librarian in Texas, just graduated and fully certified. Our libraries have become more than book warehouses, transforming into vibrant centers of knowledge building and community. I've attempted to capture the joy that arises from learning new skills. Okay, sorry, my mic just dropped off for some reason. Yeah, I've attempted to capture the joy that arises from learning new skills, creating art, and reading new books. Here's to hoping I can manifest this vision in the coming school year. That's beautiful. We love to see that. We love to see the ways that, something as simple as a library has been so expanded in this setting. I speak about library economies all the time on my channel, and seeing a visual representation of that, it's wonderful to see. They have learn together, build together, make it. So you're not just passively consuming books, passively consuming media in this space, but you're also participating in creation, in crafting. Love to see it. All right. Now this piece is a bit unconventional and not what I usually go for these art collaborations. This is a poster, right? It features, the sort of digital painting that I like to see in the Solarpunk art collaboration. And it also incorporates some graphic design elements with this flyer. So this is Lost Futures by PMB08. I try to imagine a place of union for an entire city in my country, a place modular on activities and use. It could be a neighbor's community center, a communal workshop, kitchen, school, or a place where to hold festivals and soccer games. As for the artwork, I kind of try to pose it as a poster, a picture of how the place looks out and inside. Those words in the top left reference what I said above and are written in Spanish and Guarani, Paraguay's official languages. And those characters are three great friends who hang out a lot at the workshop and volunteer. So I think something that ALXD and I had spoken about with the Solarpunk art collaborations is getting people to see themselves in these visuals, in these stories. And one of the things we discussed was having recurrent characters in Solarpunk visuals. Now there's another artwork we're going to see later on that has a recurrent character that I've seen from that person's artwork before, and we'll touch on that when that arises. But I really appreciate not only did this person incorporate their culture, their specific situation of Paraguay's, dual official language status, but they also try to show both the outside and the inside of the space and to, tell a story with the characters a bit. I agree, by the way, idealistic core of it. I'm really glad these artists are being showcased considering the amount of AI garbage taking over the internet. I have to say that the amount of AI slop in Google Images and such lately has made it very difficult for me to find a lot of the visuals that I would usually use for my channel. I've had to find new ways to put together my videos since genuine human made art is being made increasingly hard to come by. This next piece is another really sort of creative Freeman. It's called Intro to River Recovery by Shoulder Drake. This piece features a volunteer educator from a bioregional conservation group teaching citizen scientists about methods for monitoring the health of a river in the decades following a dam removal project. This is framed as a recorded live stream, now posted online for anyone to view and learn from. The accompanying PDF is a description/summary for the posted stream as it would appear online. And this person actually sent me a PDF, which obviously I couldn't feature here, but that's what they're describing for this. Presented by Great Lakes Citizen Science Collective, this series aims to educate impassioned individuals on stewarding forest river ecosystems. This installment focuses on collecting information about floral and faunal populations, assessing water movement sample collection for contaminant testing, and more. We learn from experienced conservationists how to go about measuring the health of an ecosystem and its inhabitants. The filming location for this installment was the Baraboo River, 60 years after a series of dams were removed from the urban center. The fourth largest estuary to the Wisconsin River, Baraboo has been home to humankind for at least 2,000 years, with mound building civilizations clearly evident in the archaeological record, and the Ho Chunk Nation inhabiting the area for hundreds of years prior to Western colonization. Follow these links to learn more about both archaeological and modern people who call this river home. So that's really cool, to frame something as simple as, people testing and checking out a river, teaching about a river, put it in the form of a live stream and sort of put us in the headspace of a Solarpunk setting where we have some Solarpunk equivalent to YouTube, or perhaps a Solarpunk reclamation of YouTube being used to share such vital educational material. Our next piece is called Learning Expedition by C.C. Staten. The intent is to emphasize the role that citizen science would play in a Solarpunk world. Average people are not only students of science and understanding, but regularly take part in it through the gathering of research data as a casual, even leisurely activity. So this is like incredible to me, Another situation where you have, characters in a setting, you're almost immersed in the world, you hear a sense of their personalities, and even though there isn't very much in the way of the usual Solarpunk stereotypical visuals present here, you still get a sense that these are people who have a quality of life that allows them to, explore their world, to understand the world around them, and to enjoy it. To have learning be an enjoyable experience, to have learning be an experience that not only fulfills them as individuals, but also allows them to support their community. So I really love this one. And it definitely tells a great story. Next, we have Under the Banyan by Aditi A. This artwork consists of a huge banyan tree which serves as the focal point of the gathering. Two people are seated on a branch at the center, one telling a story, singing, while the other interprets in sign language. Between them is a speaker for the tala, rhythm. All around them, people gather or sit to listen/watch the narration, while also doing other activities such as knitting, resting, playing marbles, etc. It is inspired by the concept of banyan trees as a symbol of community and as the center of an Indian village or town, expanding it to include learning of all topics in a calm, relaxed environment for everyone. This is another one I really love. I always appreciated in my past, learning experience, just being able to go outside while learning. You know, it's a nice change of pace from the usual indoor environment. It can be distracting for some, but being able to soak in a setting and passively, you know, listen to somebody's lesson or story while resting in a tree or playing games under a tree or just existing in the loving embrace of such a massive and culturally significant species. Um, I really appreciate this. Love to see it. And next here we have Staten Island Solarpunk by Nature 1137. This painting is a representation of what my brain bombards me with when I see an empty slash abandoned building. You and me both, by the way. But I digress. The building I drew the building I drew belongs to the Staten Island Farm Colony, a former poorhouse that is currently abandoned. Right now it's used for urban exploration and paintball games by local teenagers. My reimagined image of the Staten Island Farm Colony is set in a future without hierarchical institutions, one that will be upon us sooner than we know. It's hard to imagine what a school would look like without hierarchies, but I like to think it looks something like this. Kids are observing things they can find in nature not far from where they live. They listen to their parents and local know-it-alls tell them about how the world used to be. All members of the community spend time on the grounds and have the choice to learn something about the land and community or give back to it. Maybe they sign up to take or teach classes and develop new skills here. In my drawing, this community has worked on projects and experiments. The area features a pond that acts as a carbon sink, solar panels provide energy for small amenities, an algae farm on the roof, a community garden that honors native practices, and a construction site featuring DIY, clay, and glass bottle bricks to fill in the gaps in the broken but not irreparable walls. And that's just to name a few features. All of these things can provide learning opportunities and skills to the community, whether someone wants to be a gardener or an electrician or something entirely unheard of. That's beautiful. You know, I actually saved each of these descriptions to read them live so that I could react live to them. And I didn't even notice some of these details. And it shows that a lot of care and attention was put into this piece. And it's a fantastical world for now, but it's one that I can definitely see us achieving. And I love the colors as well. And I just realized that I did not announce that I was live on the group chats, on the Discord servers, sorry. So let me do that real quick. Right, back to it. So this is called Solar Cooking Class by Linz, right? And Linz has featured art on this art collaboration before. And what I appreciated about that is that we actually see two recurring characters from a previous piece that they submitted. Let me see if I can find it, and I will share it with you all. I should have it saved right on my... Let me see. Looking. Might have been from 2023, maybe. It's not there. Maybe 2024. Yes, here we are. That's what I thought. Right, so Lynn's actually submitted this piece back in 2024, and I used it as a thumbnail for the live stream for that piece. You see the little girl with the glasses and the orange hair featured once again, and the little boy with the short brown hair featured once again in this piece. So we see another, you know, continuity. I wonder if the back of this person's head is the same as this one. That'd be really cool if that's the case. But Lynn seems to be creating almost like a story with characters that we can recognize. And if Lynn submits their artwork again for future collaborations, we'll see what else these characters get up into So let me read their description. I wanted to show a solar cooking demonstration held in an urban garden. For this demonstration, people are totally free to come and go as they please, with no age restrictions. In addition to learning how the solar cooker works, the kids are also learning how to identify herbs, especially really aggressive ones like peppermint, that make a fantastic tea and always need thinning out. To quickly answer your question, I'm the banana. You can find the Solarpunk Art Collaboration Discord server on the Storyseed Library website, and you can, which is linked in the description of this live stream, and you can find the main Discord server on another within that art collaboration server, or I think I have them shared in different places. Somebody else could also drop the link in the chat here as well. Well, yes, Lam, I'm also trying to see Superman as soon as possible. Back to the art. The next piece that we have featured is Biophony by Natalia Wren. Here's their description. Understanding what a healthy soundscape is has increasingly become a vital tool in maintaining the health of both the environment and the humans within it. Some existing unused architecture, such as selected out-of-service bus shelters, have been transformed into sound stations. They serve as small hubs for groups or individuals to learn about and help identify what their local natural habitats should sound like so they can be maintained and self-sustained by the wildlife in it. You know, it's not something we think about often, sound pollution or noise pollution, but it is a detrimental, issue, for both human health and animal health, wildlife, health of the ecology. And so getting ourselves and our bodies and our minds in tune with what, the natural world should sound like, natural, or what are healthy levels of sound and of volume, I think that's a really creative project. Next, we have Argonomic Tower by Elijah Claude. This was a really detailed diagram, and again, not something that I usually would feature in an art collaboration. I'm partial to the digital paintings, but I appreciated the level of detail that went into this. I'm not going to read all of the detailed pieces here, but you can always look at this piece of art on the Tumblr page, on the Tumblr post, where I shared all of these pieces in their original detail. And if this ends up on the Storyseed library, you could also look at it there as well. But I'll read Elijah Claude's description right now. So, the Argonomic Tower is a solarpunk vision of recycling/upcycling a typical corporate high-rise into a public center that serves to both feed the community and teach them everything they want to learn about ergonomics. People of all ages will be able to attend scheduled classes, request one-on-one advice, do mentorships and apprenticeships here, as well as share their own learnings. These classes would usually be hands-on activities where students get to work directly with the subject matter. They can be immersed in their environment, as well as participate in communal maintenance/production of the building to further hone their skills and lessons. This concept is highly flexible and is meant to get across the idea. There are only 8 floors in this visual, but in real life, multiple floors of a high-rise could be used for one or more of the levels described within. Most floors should no longer have windows in order to dramatically reduce the energy needs of a full building air conditioning. Furthermore, any parts that do have windows should have nets or other structures over them to reduce bird strikes and heat/glare effects. The nets should be large enough such that they don't tangle up birds and instead can be used for nests or other vertical habitats. The tower is meant to give people access to any and all aspects of nature and food within an urban environment. Each level is meant to focus on a specific aspect/field of study. Again, love the level of detail on this. The descriptions, the thought that went into things like, netting to prevent birds from crashing into the windows, or, to prevent glare. The thought about how much energy is required to heat buildings and what can be done to mitigate that. Really brilliant work. Next, we have Rehearsal at Portal by the Lemonot. I've worked with lemon art in the past to create artwork for my channel, and lemon art has been really prolific in terms of pushing forward solarpunk art, solarpunk visuals, and the solarpunk zeitgeist. They're one of the more prominent artists in this space, and so I've loved to see their interpretations of different themes and different ideas, and I particularly love how they chose to approach this theme of life of learning. I'll read their email. For this, I was aiming to show both one person teaching another, and also doing so across national lines without having to travel all the way across the world. Since reducing travel to cut down on emissions by using these sorts of portals is a suggestion I've seen. With one girl in Kenya, the other in Ukraine, they and other people who come to these spaces, which are meant to be community centers or something akin to that, can connect on a regular basis, form relationships, and teach each other things. In this case, it's dance, the Chaka-Cha dance from Mombasa, meant to be danced by women only. The wall art on the left is inspired by a mask made by Cyrus Kabiru, a Kenyan artist that crafts intricate masks out of discarded materials, and the hairstyle is similar to one in a Tandiwe Muriu photograph. The wall art on the right side of the screen is based on the paintings of Maria Primachenko, a renowned Ukrainian artist who lived in the 20th century. So we see in, the use of, first of all, there's almost like a story being told here with this piece. You see them stretching to prepare for the dance. You see them coming in. You see them talking about what they're going to dance, what they're going to do for the dance. And you also see them syncing up their music and stretching and preparing for the actual dance practice itself. And then you see the actual cultural incorporations, two different styles of architecture, different styles of flooring, different styles of windows, different styles of decor, and different styles of clothing that really reflect the cultures of the people. That instead of this sort of amorphous and cultureless globalization where everybody dresses the same, lives in the same buildings, and consumes the same stuff, we see in this solarpunk setting that people are actually embracing their cultures, and not only embracing their cultures, but also exchanging their cultures in a respectful and creative way. We also have this solarpunk boat by Frenek, depicted as a settlement building on the remnants of an old coastal town. The focal point is a lifeboat converted into a floating library. It serves as a way of cultural exchange between surrounding communities and a window into the world. Depicted is an evening showing of a movie. Now, some of you may have seen this piece when it was a work in progress on my community tab. This is the finished piece, and I think it came out beautifully. I really appreciate the idea of a floating library, library in motion. I often, well, growing up, I used to, when it came around, there's this boat that goes around the world. It's like a Christian missionary boat. It's called Logos. And they would go to different countries and they would bring a bunch of different books and that sort of thing for people to buy. This seems similar to that in the sense that it's probably a smaller boat that is meant to transport certain commons between coastal towns, carrying probably books, materials, technologies, tools, whatever, but also bringing media. Maybe this coastal town is isolated in some way, or maybe the lines of communication in this particular solarpunk setting are slower than the ones that we are familiar with. And so I appreciate that not only is this lifeboat likely bringing supplies, materials, things to share, it's also bringing media from other parts of the world so that people can exchange, stories, exchange ideas, exchange visuals in a communal way. People could come and gather in this space. They can fish while they watch a movie. I think that's really cool. And I love the use of light and color in this piece. Next, we have Indoor. I just decided to call this one Indoor Outdoor by Andre. and I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. I wanted to imagine an urban community space that does not separate between indoors and outdoors. I believe education has no place behind closed doors. And, we can really look at that in action. We could see that this person has allowed light to play in this space, has allowed for different levels of indoor outdoor use. And I can imagine the sort of conversations that are taking place in this setting, the sort of ideas that are being exchanged and shared. Love to see it. Finally, we have. Wait, not finally. Almost finally. This is the second to last piece. This is Reading by Kazuha. This is a scene of younger kids learning how to read and write. It'll be the most important foundation to the future learning, so I believe it'll be given to all people at their early ages. I focused on showing the welcoming and accepting atmosphere of these learning places and the tolerance for individuality these people and places have. I try to show permaculture inside a house by the cones on the far left of the picture. Also, the far left kid with animal costume is wearing a blood glucose monitor on arm and an insulin pump on stomach. It's because I have type 1 diabetes and want to see all kids with diabetes having pumps so they don't need to give themselves injections all the time. Aww. The other interpretations of the details is left to the viewers. I know here are still a lot of themes that could be included, such as diversity on Asian culture, representation of future technology, etc. I am excited to getting better at imagining the solarpunk world and better future for everyone. Thank you. No, thank you, Kazuha, for your contribution. I honestly, if I didn't know any better, I would think that the teacher looks a bit like me before I cut my hair. But that's just wishful thinking. I really like the incorporation of disability in this piece in a creative way. You know, oftentimes, and it's not a knock on any other artist, but oftentimes when you want to represent disability in a piece of solarpunk art, the easiest and most accessible or familiar visual representation of disability is, someone in a wheelchair or somebody who is an amputee of some kind. And that isn't very important to represent. I'm not taking away from that representation at all, but it's good to see other forms of disability represented in the art as well. I really like this inclusion. And I also like that, something as simple as teaching children to read was also depicted in this solarpunk art collaboration. You know, we when we came up with this theme for this year, Life of Learning, we wanted to see teaching, education, mentorship, learning in all sorts of different settings, unconventional settings. But it's also good to come back to the basics every once in a while. And this is an example of coming back to the basics in a really cozy, warm, inviting, and creative way. So I appreciate it. Oh yes, Elijah Claude just wanted to offer the suggestion that their piece was not a painting but a 3D model, sort of a kit bash or 3D collage using using pre-made assets. Thank you. Thanks for the correction. Right, and finally, last but not least, and I say last but not least because unfortunately this piece was not featured in the video because it's only as I was going through my emails today, trying to catch up on some of them, that I happened to check my spam folder and saw that this person submitted their art very early last month, and I never saw it because for some reason it got sent into the spam folder. Right, so this is the last piece, not featured in the original video, but it's featured on the Tumblr post now, and it's featured here in the live stream. And this is Reimagined Classroom by Captain Theory. My work depicts a reimagined classroom. Instead of the typical rows of desks, wait, what are you saying about the dog? There's nothing wrong with the dog. It's a cute dog. Anyway, right, back to the other piece. This work depicts a reimagined classroom. Instead of the typical rows of desks, there are sets of armchairs and sofas surrounding round tables. On them are people of different ages. A lot of them are visibly disabled, as much as the simplistic art style would allow. In between the desks, there is a teacher that is just checking the students' work instead of controlling it. Through the window, a night sky is visible, as well as a red streetlight. Those are safer for bats than the regular ones. That's a really, creative inclusion. As a student myself, I wanted to depict something very simple and grounded. A lot of the misery my studies are causing me comes from the very easily fixable things, such as removing the grading system, making the time for classes more flexible and the classrooms more accessible. More broadly, though, we would all benefit from giving the students more agency, like the rights to pick teachers and subjects. I agree. And that's it for this year's Solarpunk art collaboration. These were all incredible, amazing, brilliant, creative submissions. I appreciated every last one of them. And I'm hoping that these artists and more can contribute to next year's collaboration. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check out the Story Seed Library website linked below, where you'll get the Discord link. On that website, you will get to see some of the art when ALXT gets around to, uploading them onto the page. And if you still want to submit art, feel free to do so. I might be able to add them on to the Tumblr post, or send them over to ALXD so you could add them to the Story Seed library. And I just want to remind everybody to keep thinking critically, keep creating, keep telling the stories of the world that we want to build. Because with each visual contribution, we add to that zeitgeist of what's possible. The world is so dark right now, and in times like these, we need the creative and colorful visuals of Solarpunk coming to bring light to us all. Thank you very much to all the artists once again. Thank you for everybody